ביאור משנה י"א. Explanation for משנה י"א. משנתנו מוסיפה ללמד בנגר. Our Mishnah continues to teach us this נגר. והיא באה להשמיענו, and it comes to teach us, שהואיל ולא אסרו לנעול בנגר אלא משום שבות. The only reason one is not allowed to use the neger is not a mitzvah from the Torah. It's only a decree of the rabbis that they came. The rabbi says, it looks like building, therefore don't do it. I know it's not building, but since it looks like building, therefore don't do it. אין איסור זה נוהג במקדש. We're going to learn that shvut doesn't exist in the temple. When it comes to people in the temple, the rabbis don't, all the rules from the rabbis don't exist when it comes to the temple. None of the rules of the rabbis exist in the temple. They exist outside. They don't exist. The temple represents God. Don't tell me the rabbis overrule God. Yeah, that's what the temple is. In God's house, you do God's rules, not the rabbis' rule. But everywhere else, that's where you can put the rabbis. The rabbis come to tell you what to do. They don't come to tell God what to do. Usually it is. That's why it usually is. Not usually. It always is. It always is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Neger hanigrar. We have a neger that is dragged. Thank you. בריח שהוא קשור בדלת, that it is tied to the door. That if it's tied to the door and it's hanging, yeah. 2x4 is tied to the door and is hanging, everybody says, oh, of course, it's part of it's a lock. That's what everybody says. Over here, the problem is it lays on the floor. There's a long rope and it looks like it's a 2x4. That's the problem. Because it's not hanging in the air. That's right. אבל אינו תלוי כולו באוויר. It is not completely hung in the air. אלא שהחבל ארוך ועל ידי כך נגרר הנגר בארץ. The rope is long, and the neger and this piece of 2x4, the rebar, is on the ground. ונראה כאילו אינו קשור. It looks like it is not tied. מבואר במפורשים, and it explains שמדובר כאן בנגר שאין בראשו גלוסטרה. We're not discussing over here a regular 2x4 with the knob that we discussed in the previous one. It's a regular 2x4. The only reason I'm allowed to use the regular 2x4 without the knob over here, it is because everybody can see that it's a lock. It can see it's a lock. But over here, now that it's on the floor, the Rebbe says, now you can't see it's a lock. You don't use it. So it says, and who said don't use it? The Rebbe says don't use it. From the Torah, it's still a lock. Since it's connected to the wall, it's still a lock. But it doesn't look like a lock, so the Rebbe says, no. Once we'll allow you to do this, the next thing, you know what you're going to do? You're going to use a regular 2x4. And a regular 2x4, you're not allowed to use. So therefore, we will not let you use even this one. That's what the Rebbe says. But it says, when it comes to the temple, such a lock, when it comes to the temple, a 2x4 in the temple, since there's no rules of the rabbis in the temple, you're allowed to use it. So that it says, no alimbo b'mikdash. You're allowed to use such a 2x4 or such a rebar in the temple. Mut'ar lin'ol bo b'beit hamikdash. You're allowed to use it in the temple. She'en isuru alo mishom shvut. Because the prohibition comes from the rabbis. It's called shvut. Ve'en isur shvut noheg b'mikdash. And we don't have the rules of the rabbis coming to the temple. Aval lo b'medina. But in the entire land, yeah, the rules of the land, not of the rules of the temple, you will not be allowed to use it. Michutz lamikdash, outside of the temple, sho'il v'hu nigrar, since it is not hung, eino nikar she'omed in hatadelet. He cannot see that the 2x4 is actually a lock. Ve'lachen gazru bo chachamim, and this is why the rabbis made a decree, שלא לנעול בו בשבת, never to use such a 2x4 on Shabbat. Because I'm going to look at you using 2x4s on Shabbat. I said, okay, I saw Moshe doing it in his house. I didn't realize that there was a rope over there. I just saw him take 2x4 from the ground and put it on a lock. Okay, I can do it in my house. In my house, it's not going to be a lock, just going to do 2x4. And now I'm transgressing something from the Torah. It's a problem. מפני שנראה כבונה, because it looks like I'm building, or either that, or מפני שאין עליו תורת כלי, or because it is not a vessel like we learned in the previous one. If it's a tool. A tool. Thank you. ואסור לטלטלו משום מוקצה. You're not even allowed to touch it. You're not allowed to touch building materials on Shabbat. It's muktzeh.
If it had a Torah tool on it,
then you'll be allowed to.
but it's a tool.
Yeah, but you're allowed to use tool for that purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. והמונח, נגר המונח על גבי קרקע. What about a 2x4 or a rebar that it's on the floor? ואינו קשור כלל בדלת. It is not tied at all to the door. Then, כאן וכאן אסור. All of a sudden, it's also forbidden where? In the temple. Because this is called building. כאן וכאן. בין במקדש ובין במדינה. Also in the temple, also in the entire country. אסור לנעול בו. One is not allowed to use it. מפני שהוא בניין ממש. Because this is considered building. That's the way you used to build.
A part that designate to do it all the time. They did it for you. You can do it.
No, it's building.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, even was like the one Ari said that's painted blue and nothing else is ever blue, and that's blue and it's blocking. Still, it's building?
A good question. I don't know. If it's ornate, very ornate, maybe you're allowed to do it because it looks like specific, not for building. I don't know. Yeah. But we're talking about rebar and 2x4. Yeah. We're talking about rebar and 2x4. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, disagrees. It says, Hamunach mutar b'mikdash. It says the one that's on the ground is permitted in the temple. אף הנגר המונח על גבי הקרקע ואינו קשור כלל מותר לנעול בו במקדש. It says, why? Rabbi Yehuda, you crazy? You're building. שלדעת רבי יהודה, אף זה אין איסורו אלא משום שנראה כבניין. This is what Ari was shouting the entire time. It says, it only looks like building. It's not really building. ולא משום שהוא בניין ממש. You're not building, you're just locking the door. What are you doing? That's not called building. וכיוון שאינו אלא איסור שבות, and who says it's not allowed to? The rabbi says, אין איסור זה נוהג במקדש. Therefore, we do not use this custom in the mikdash. In the mikdash you're allowed to because it's only the rabbanan. So even if it's not tied, I'm allowed to use it in the temple. שלא גזרו משום שבות במקדש. והנגרר בנגר הנגרר שהוא קשור בדלת בחבל ארוך, and what if it is tied with a long rope, ונגרר הוא בארץ כמו שבאלמין, במדינה it says I even permit this in what? To the other people, because it's not locking, and you have 2 שבועות. אף במדינה, היינו מחוץ למקדש, outside of the temple. מותר לנעול בו, you're allowed to lock in it. שהואיל והוא קשור, because there's a sign on it. You can see that it's tied. Yeah, הרי ניכר הוא שעומד למדינת דלת. It looks like it's there for a lock, not for building purposes. וההלכה כברבי יהודה, and the law is like רבי יהודה.
It makes sense, Rabbi.
You like רבי יהודה?
Better.
You want me to...
Of course. What if I had a hammer in my house that I always use it for the egozim? Now it's a tool that I turn it into. Can I always go in Shabbos and use it? It's a tool.
Yeah.
אתה מבין?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't you use this?
Because
It's
this
a
is...
tool.
It's a building material.
גם זה building. I can take this.
The hammer is a tool. It's not a building material. See, this is even muktzeh.
אבל the thing is
Ah, yeah,
a tool. They say that it's a tool.
That's the argument. Some say it's a tool, some say it's not. That's what we're arguing about.
אבל if you do the crush pepper, it's a tool. Or you, אתה יודע מה, אגוזים. I take it and I עושה אגוזים. כמו הפטיש. אתה אומר, יש גדול, הוא עושה אגוזים, הוא אוכל בזה אגוזים.
So there's a difference. I'll give you an example.
What's the difference?
I'll give you an example. If you have a rebar in your house, you're not allowed to use to crush nuts with it. If you have a hammer in your house, you are allowed to use to crush.